So the Gemara said that when Moishe went up on high, so the Malachim protested. All of the detail, and Eibishter told Moishe, you answer them, and the answer was, did you go, look at the set of Sadibus, did you go down to Mitzrayim, do you have a Yitzhahara? The Medrash elaborates and said actually this protest took place 3 times. Creation, Matan Torah, and Mishkan. Which implies it's all one Nakuda, one Taina, one evolving Taina, one evolving protest, because one is the realization, the completion of the other. The purpose of creation altogether is because first that was shocking. Why are you creating an Olam Hazeh? Then you want an Olam Hazeh not only to contrast Olam Haba, but there's a Matan Torah, which we never had, and it's dafka here. And then the final a clear articulation of the divine intent. You want the Mishkan, where you dwell, dafka here. So it's one evolving kavon, and therefore one evolving time. He went into another depth. What the time is? The time is not so much that you're giving it to Yidden, because Neshamas Malachim recognize that Neshamas are higher. But why are you giving it to a boss of Adam? Now, moreover, he explains that you want to give it to a goof, we understand also, but why a goof? Gashmi. So here was a whole arichas, which began with the question that why is it the Nevi'im do not record the song of the Neshamas, only the song of Malachim? At the end of the Maimer, it would appear, although he doesn't address it directly, that the answer is because the song of Neshamas is not given to be recorded. It's pnimiusdik. It's a pnimiusdik, a song of connection to the Eibishter, where there is no, in that union, and in that longing, in that ascent, and in that connection, which only the Neshamas have, there's no outside. There's no outsider to record it. It's totally a pnimiusdik connection. In other words, it's like there's a song of an orchestra, and then there's the pure melody itself. The pure melody itself, not the instruments that would play the song, but the actual song itself. Pnimius, that seems to be the Nakuda. So there's a whole harichas, and that was about the nature of the goof of the Malachim. He brings the various psukim. That this idea of ruach and eish, spirit and fire, refers, as explains from the Ramban, to the guf of the Malachim, not the nefesh, which are higher than any of even the most elevated of the 4 elements. And that's why he explains that you can see a malach. The difference between a malach and a guf and a shaman in a guf is that the guf of the malach is actually the malach, whereas a neshama is in a guf that has a separate shoyrish. As explained later, everything else is created, guf and nefesh together, whereas a person was created first a guf, and then in the neshama that's invested in it. So the answer to the malachim is that your guf is ruchni still. That's not the kavanah. The kavanah is dafke, a guf bas of Adam, which is shaykhs to do that which is contrary to Hashem's will. Therein, he wants to have the connection. Behemshach to the previous mind, but the whole explanation of Barosiv, first the Chvoidi, Barosiv, Yitzartiv, and Af Asisiv. that the Kavanah is dafke in the Asiyah. So then began the Richas and His Gimel. Why is it that only Neshamas can elevate this world and Malachim cannot? So explain that the four categories of existence, Doim, Semeh, Chayim, Medaber, correspond to the Daldaishis of Shem Havaya. Even though Beprati is Malachim, therefore, it includes Malachim. And even though in Prati is Malachim, Hashaychas, Hashem Likim, and the Shem is the Shem Havaya, but in the larger picture, even all of existence has a connection to Shem Havaya. That's because it doesn't go into Arichas, but there's two levels to Shem Havaya. There's the transcendent level, true, that's Shachas only to Neshamas, but then there's Havaya as creator of everything. Hinted to in the repetition of Hashem's name, in your giving Midas Rachamim, Hashem, Hashem, and elsewhere in Psukim. So therefore, Havaya, Yud as Mahava, it's all Dalit Sugim. The last day corresponds to Malchus, as is later Oisius. Vav is, that is Daimim, Vav is Midas, corresponding to Tzimeach. Midas grow from childhood to maturity. And the first day is Bina, that's Chai. Chava was Eim Kol Chai, the mother of all living things. That's Sfiras HaBina, she was Bina. And then higher still is Chachma. By Chachma we mean Chitzonis HaChachma. Chitzonis HaChachma, which is Machaya. Chachma Techaya, as it's related to creation. So, Malachim and Veshach is the word. It's a Me'ech Chai. He brings the various psukim, as Yeramna call that Yoar, and then of course the connection to Chayis, Pnei Ari, Pnei Sher, Pnei Nesher, birds, but the Yud, and especially the Pnimis Yud, so this is Shaychus only to the Neshama. And the point being that the middle Oisius, the Vav and the Hey, the first day, have an integral connection of Ilu v'Olu, from Seichel goes to Midas. We see Begashmis that Tzimech and Chai have an integral connection, both live, both grow. There's even studies that show that plants have feelings and respond to an environment of love. Certain plants, maybe all of them, as opposed to an environment that is full of strife, they don't flourish. So we see this intrinsic connection between the animal world and the plant world. Masha'enkein, the doimim, is a whole world in itself. It's not ilu v'olu, it's b'derech richuk. And the paradox is that doimim is dafka rooted in pnimius hachachma. And we see the mashal for this we see this in the union of Oisius. Oisius is the doimim within the person. It also refers to, mind you, the Oisius that Eibishter uses the words to create the world. Not the same as human Oisius, but human Oisius devolve from that. So what do we see? We see that they come, they don't evolve from Seichel and Midas. It's not like the Seichel and Midas, then the next step, produce the Oisius to express themselves. The Oisius are there independently, and they're rooted in the Etzem HaNefesh, and moreover, there are the Oisius which are in the Etzem HaNefesh, Chesed and Gevura, expressive and containment, independent of Seichel and Midas. These two primary states of expression, Oisius exist there, and that's where they come from, which is why an idea of Chesed can be employed, Gevura Oisius, and vice versa. So he's saying that just like Chachma itself, Chachma ba'ayin timotze, Chachma itself comes b'derech richuk, from its source, because its source is truly infinite, and Chachma acknowledges that in his bottle to it, not an intimate ilu v'olu evolution. So too, the Oisius emerged from Chachma at a very deep level, but in this case, b'derech richuk, it's lost on it. The case of Chachma appreciates its richuk and his bottle. The case of the Oisius are just letters and don't feel the source, till we bring to bear our avodah. And it's our avodah that brings to bear and reveals in the Oisius the Pnimius HaChacham, etc. This after 40 years in the whole avodah to extract from the Oisius the depth of the seichel, higher even than manifested seichel. So again, this explains why Malachim created the guf. Everything was created. All things were created with their bodies and souls at once. A person was created first, gathered from dust, from earth, which would make him lower. And in fact, as he does come at the end of the process, man was created last. So in that sense, he's lower. That's because his kavanah is to elevate the lowest creation. And then it's breathed into him and the neshama from Pnimius HaChochma, which Dafka has this connection to the daimon and therefore able to elevate it. The daimon ultimately emerging from the most deepest essential level. Or the I that I am, of Elam Hazeh, which is the only condition, world where such a lie exists, is because it's a distortion of the true lie, the I that I am of the Eibishter. That doesn't exist in any of the intermediate worlds. Yeah, we'll just put on the old mute. Okay. You're looking at Eis Dalet now. And Eis Dalet said that even though, therefore, away from Klali, the Shams come from Shem Havaya, and which is Oid, and Malachim from Kelim. That's the Maila of Neshamas. But then he asked, but Neshamas we also know come from Kelim. Explained elsewhere. Shegam Neshamas Shem HaKelim. So what's the difference between them and the Malachim? Then, of course, the big answer is that repeating the Arichas, we spent a couple of shurim on this really, that they come from Pnimius HaKelim, and that's a whole different order of connection. As we explained, where the Koich HaGvul does not conceal but expresses. And they brought two Mashalim, a Mashal Gashmi of the Pnimius of the Keli as opposed to the external dimension of the Keli. It's only the Pnimius of the Keli that's connected to the content that's within it. Whereas the Chitzonius HaKeli completely conceals it. And its function is only to bring it from one place to another. That's Koich HaGvul externally creating distance and concealment. But the Pnimius of Koich HaGvul is the Eibishter's expression, no less than Bli Gvul. That's where Neshamas come from, that kind of Gvul. The second Moshel was of the Keli of the Moyach. That Dafke the Seichel comes from the Chitzonius of Moichin, which is why it's only our order, which is why you cannot give Seichel to someone. You can't give someone intelligence, but you can create a child, and the child comes from the Moichin. And that's from the Pnimius HaMoichin. It's Dafke the Tippa, which is not a ha'order, but Amshach of the Etzem, which manifests in the Tippa, and a physical expression of the person. Therein lies his Etzem. So here's a Keli, it's the Mayach, and we're talking Mamish Keli, a Tippa Gashmi, but in this Tippa Gashmi, the Pnimius Etzem HaNefesh is expressed, and hence, he gives birth to a child. He doesn't say it here that is similar to him and can even be manifestedly even more cultivated than him. So that's another moshel for what is meant by Pnimius HaKeli, and what Pnimius HaKeli, which is Atzmizdik, produces, which Oir cannot. So therefore it concludes the last Ois, the holding in the whole Arichas about again back to the first question, the Shira of the Malachim, which is recorded. That's the Pnimius, because by Pnimius I mean that a Malach, is a Guf, and his Nefesh are one, and therefore when Yeshua wants to stop the sun, he doesn't say stop your your sivuv, your no, not cycle. There's a word for it.
Orbit.
Orbit, exactly. Thank you, but rather he says, Shemesh begivin doin. Stop singing. Stop singing. He's still being orbiting and not singing. What's he accomplished? He wants to bring out that it's nefesh and it's guf. It's one nakuda. So if he doesn't sing, he doesn't orbit. I think in a person is not nefesh. It can be one world and guf in another world, and they are, without avoid and making them one. So therefore, when they stop singing, automatically it's a limited kind of singing, and therefore it's given to be recorded. Mashenki, the shir of the shamas, a pnimizdike shira, he doesn't conclude it. He's just saying it's not bound at all, and therefore can be in a guf, and they can therefore elevate the world. The neshama has a deep connection to the Olam Hazeh. Why? Because neshama is rooted in Atmos, and Atmos' desire is Olam Hazeh. All the reasons he explained, all the expressions of all of that. Oisias rooted in Kadmos HaSeichel, etc. So therefore, the neshama can elevate the world. But he doesn't really conclude and spell out, therefore, why the Malachim didn't record their song. It's as if to say that their song is the song of the Malach. He's saying is, I'm just thinking aloud now. Maybe there's something else I'm missing. Then the song of the Malach, he's saying, is integral to his guf. The Talmud sees, stop singing. So there's nothing, there's not even a physical orbit when the shira stops. And therefore there's a h'tשכ to the shir of the Malachim. And because there's a h'tשכ, it's over, it can be recorded. This seems to be something here. Maybe this is something that he's saying. As he said before in the previous ois, that the neshama is not mugbal in zman and mokim, like a malach. And therefore the song can't be recorded, it's not over. It's not finished, done. It's a bligvul, that's the nakud. It's a bligvul dikashira. It's an infinite song, not given to be recorded with notes. It's the 8th note, right? 8th day. They call themselves the 8th day, the band. It's referring to the kinder of Shemayna Nimin. There's only 7 notes. Because the 8th note is silent, it can't be recorded. It's an, as it were, it's bligvul. So that's the answer. The answer why the song of neshamas can't be recorded, because there's no end to the song. It's a bligvul diga song, not given to be recorded with notes on a paper and instruments, and it starts and it ends. That's the nakud. As we spoke about when we learned the previous ois, the shir of the malachim at a certain time. And that's it. You don't sing it then. It's meaningless later. Mashenkin and neshama, a yid is not bound. Sela is forever. Be'etzem, his shira continues forever. Okay, good. We speak aloud, that we get some clarity. So yeah, we agree. Seems to be the pshat. Yeah. All right, I say finally, so this is the Beshah Sheoloh, Moishe that why didn't Abishta answer the Malachim? Moishe, you have to answer them, because the answer has to come from the boss of Adom Dafke. And the end was that the Malachim want to be part of it. They finally get it, and the Rebbe says they get it. It means they conceded to that. It means they also conceded Beis Mikdash HaShlishi, to the final articulation of the Kavanah Pnimius. Why do we need the Malachim to agree? So don't agree. Is it our concern that they should remain, have a question unanswered? So the answer he gave in the Maimah was the help of the Malachim. We need the Malachim's help. A Yid needs to be inspired by and connected to transcendence and moments of disengagement from the world. And with this, he engages the world thereafter and is able to elevate it. It's a big theme in Chassidus. We've spoken about it. One of the signs of a kosher animal is it has to have a split hoof, which is an inherent contradiction. Hoof means it shouldn't walk on the ground. Split means it what? It is open to the ground. That's the answer. In order to be able to engage the world, there has to be moments where we divest ourselves of it. That's the Shidduch HaMalachim, that's the Siyua. Elsewhere it says they help in the Avidas HaBerurim. At any rate, so they agree, and they assist us in our Avodah, which is ultimately not the Mishkan, not even Mishkan Sheoloh, but Dafke, the Beis HaMikdash, and even Beis HaMikdash, not even because that didn't last, but Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, which is Doimim, and this process began in earnest by Matan Torah, with Eibishter's voice, Anochi permeated all the 6 directions of existence, and the Basa, therefore, and Torah therefore brings about the realization of that permanently and forever in the deepest way. Okay, friends, that was an overview of the Maamar. No substitutes for learning it. Let's begin now the next Maamar.